Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tease video. And in this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Scale Commander hero talents that are going to be available for Augmentation and Devastation Evokers in the next expansion, War Within. These are new abilities or abilities layered on existing abilities to make them even more powerful and to enhance your gameplay and fantasy. So we're going to be reviewing these and making sure that that is going to be hitting the mark and how good do they actually look. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at that will be available to you as soon as the expansion comes out is Mass Eruption / Mass Disintegrate, and this immediately makes me think that this is going to be absolutely phenomenal in Mythic Plus for just blasting down trash mobs. For Augmentation, Empower spells cause your next eruption to strike up to 3 targets. When striking less than 3 targets, though, eruption damage is increased by 25% for each missing target. This is going to give you nice sustained single target as well as good AoE, so it's actually good in all situations. Devastation Evokers, Empower spells cause your next Disintegrate to strike up to 3 targets. When striking less than 3 targets, Disintegrate damage is increased by 25% for each missing target. Now, based on the damage breakdown of Evokers Devastation in PvP at least, this seems entirely unnecessary. If they were to release some class balance tuning and say we're buffing Disintegrate by whatever that is, 50% stacked, people would probably be like, wait, what? We're going to be doing that? So this already sounds crazy, likely going to be breaking the game. As we move down the left side of the tree, we're going to be getting Might of the Black Dragonflight, which will be black spells deal 10% increased damage. So again, more flat out damage. Melt Armor, Deep Breath, and Breath of the Eons causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from bombardments and essence abilities like Disintegrate. So another 20% damage up there onto Disintegrate, and whatever Breath of the, or whatever bombardments are, which I'm assuming are going to be, okay, they're right here. Bombardments, Mass Disintegrate, and Mass Eruption mark your primary target for destruction for the next 10 seconds. You and your allies have a chance to trigger a bombardment when attacking marked targets, dealing volcanic damage split amongst nearby enemies. So they're bringing in some kind of like support extra group damage to devastation from augmentation with this one. Just going to be layering on more damage during your burst windows, it seems like this. So you could line up like an empowered fire breath into this mass AoE disintegrate. That would be disgusting with Death Knights. This is just making you even more powerful with Death Knights in PvP, I would imagine. Onslaught, entering combat grants a charge of burnout, causing your next living flame to cast instantly. I think in PvE, like as you're going like pull to pull, or maybe in Battlegrounds, you're going to notice this, but in Arena, I guess maybe you could sit on that instant living flame and then save it and combo it with some sort of massive amount of burst damage. If you were to combine like the Deep Breath into a, Tip the Scales Fire Breath into this Mass Disintegrate and then shoot out an instant living flame. So you could probably sit on this and add some extra burst, but aside from that, you likely, unless you're gonna try and drop combat like a rogue, I mean, maybe you could find ways to like drop combat and just completely avoid fights here. That could be the way of going about this with Onslaught. For Wing Leader, we got Bombardments, reduce the cooldown of Deep Breath and Breath of Eons by 1 second for each target struck up to 3 seconds. So between you and your allies, if you get a bunch of classes together that have pets and AoE and all of the pets, you're going to get significant cooldown reduction on your Deep Breath for Devastation, which is going to be really good. And then even for Augmentation, because you've got time skip to be able to get your cooldowns back faster, this is going to get that ability back even faster on top of that. Unrelenting Siege. For each second you are in combat, Azure Strike and Living Flame deal 1% increased damage up to 50%. So this is actively, forcing you to play in combat, I would think. You're not going to want to just only be running away out of combat. This is buffing up abilities that I think are underwhelming. At least Azure Strike. Now, Living Flame, there's a lot of talents that have, percent damage modifiers for Living Flame. So this thing is probably going to be absolutely disgusting when the expansion comes out. And people are probably getting one shot. I'm basically reading this entire hero talent tree for PvP and thinking like, bro, this is just going to all be nerfed in PvP. There's no way you're going to add like an extra 80% damage modifier on an ability that's already like 80% of their damage breakdown. And then on abilities like Living Flame that are already doing like, a significant amount of people's health. There's no way this can go live like this, I don't think. Then we've got the Nimble Flyer. While hovering, damage taken from area of effect attacks is reduced by 10%. Or Tailwinds, Deep Breath and Breath of Eons reset the cooldown of hover. Now, with the cooldown reduction oriented to Deep Breath, with the bombardments exploding, That means you're going to get deep breath more frequently, which then means you're going to get hover more frequently, which is going to give you a lot of mobility. Like, I'm wondering if you're going to be able to compete with arcane mages at that point with that level of mobility. That would definitely be really desirable. So far, this is sounding like an amazing talent tree just in general, but especially for PvP. Extended battle. Essence abilities extend bombardments by 1 second. So you can extend them and get more of them for more cooldown reduction. Or diverted power. Bombardments have a chance to generate essence bursts. So you can just get more disintegrates, more sustain. So you can either aim towards cooldown reduction, which would play really well with tailwinds, or you can aim towards just trying to get more burst out of a very specific moment with this choice. On the left side, we've got hardened scales, which looks like it's focusing on defense. Obsidian scales will reduce damage taken by an additional 5%. Now, the defensive cooldowns for Evoker are pretty weak, so adding an extra 5% to that is definitely going to be nice. Menacing presence. Knocking an enemy up or backward reduces their damage done to you by 15% for 8 seconds. So, Augmentation Evoker has the ability to upheaval pretty consistently and get knockups. So you could provide like bark skin every time you're using an upheaval to your team. And we've seen mechanics like that with Boomkin already in PvP with high winds, with Cyclone, where when you Cyclone and they do 15% less damage, and it was really broken and it had to get nerfed quite a lot. So I could see this being a problem for Augmentation. Now, I think their intent is for the racial abilities of the Dracthyr, which is like the tail swipe and the knockback. Which are pretty significantly long cooldowns, although it may then opt you to run the baseline talents that reduce their cooldown because you could get more frequent damage reduction from those abilities. It might depend on matchup. It really depends maybe on the cooldowns that you can line up. Like if you can get tail swipe to a 45-second cooldown and it lines up with warrior offensive cooldowns, it might be better to play menacing presence against warriors, or something like hardened scales against casters, where maybe you're not going to get close enough to be able to knock them back to get the benefit of the damage reduction. So you're probably going to want to consider the situation as to whether or not which one of these options is actually going to be the best to you. But it's an interesting kind of choice to make between those two. And finally, the Capstone talent, the creme de la creme, the most crazy thing of all on this giant thing that I just zoomed out by accident, is going to be maneuverability. Deep Breath and Breath of Eons can now be steered in your desired direction. So Evokers are no longer going to be missing their deep breaths because they're going to go and immediately get back to their target. And obviously monks are incredibly envious of you because their rolls and their flying serpent kicks are still going in a straight line. But you are going to be able to decide your fate in which direction you want to go. And in addition, Deep Breath and Breath of Eons burn targets for volcanic damage over 12 seconds. So you're going to be adding in a dot to your Deep Breath, amping up the damage of all your spells by 20%. Then you're able to tip the scale's Fire Breath into a mass disintegrate that's doing 50+% depending on if you've hit one target or not. And then after that Deep Breath, the bombardments are exploding from your teammates, reducing the cooldown of your Deep Breath, enabling you to get more hover charges to be able to hover around, spamming out disintegrates, while being in combat, stacking up this massive modifier towards Living Flame to just toss out this immediate nuke of a Living Flame. So this is a highly synergized hero talent tree that is going to make Devastation Evoker absolutely crazy, and arguably probably Augmentation Evoker really crazy as well. This is one of the most powerful talent trees that I think we've reviewed so far, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is this something that's going to get you to play the Scale Commander in War Within? Thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked it, make sure to smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.